right, so I am live with 52 weeks of AWS, and I'm going to switch gears now and cover how to prepare for the AWS machine learning certification, which is a specialty certification. And I've encouraged many students to get this in programs that I've taught at, like UC Davis, Northwestern, Duke, and many students have actually passed the certification. And I've worked quite a bit with AWS technology, so I think this will be really exciting to talk about. And let's get right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. If you're watching from a remote location, you can see this. If you're listening with audio, you should be fine as well. So to start off with, the main thing I want to cover here is just to get into the logistics of what it is that we're doing, and cover that out. And let me just make sure that I'm getting this thing set. And give me 1 second here. I think I'm gonna go from this. This is a good window to go from. So let's start with welcome to machine learning course here. Some of the things that are prerequisites to be aware of would be the technical knowledge, knowing a little bit about IT technical knowledge, knowing some of the cloud foundations material. So for example, going through the previous material I did on solutions architect, also knowing about Python programming, that's really critical. I have a lot of information on Python programming at Pragmatic AI Labs, or PIAML.com, and or noagift.com. That's free. And also knowing some basics about statistics, that's important to know. And also preferred knowledge would be, cloud computing. So again, I would go through the solutions architect material, about distributed systems. You also have some familiarity with networking concepts, and you also have knowledge of multi-tiered architecture. So those are the things to be aware of. And what are we going to cover over the next several weeks? I'm going to get into what is machine learning. I'm also going to cover machine learning pipelines using SageMaker. I'm going to talk about managed Amazon ML services for forecasting, managed Amazon ML services for computer vision. I'm also going to talk about managed ML services for natural language processing. And the first module is what we're covering right now. And next week, I'll cover introducing machine learning. The week after that will be machine learning pipeline. The week after that will be introducing forecasting. The week after that will be computer vision. The week after that will be NLP, introducing natural language processing. And in week 7, we're going to do the course summary. So module 2, if we dive into what are the details there, it's going to be what is machine learning, the business problems that are involved with machine learning, the machine learning process, machine learning tools overview, the machine learning challenges. Module 3, which will be the week after this, it'll be, 2 weeks from now, will be scenario introduction, collecting and securing data, evaluating data, feature engineering, training, hosting and using a model, evaluating the accuracy of a model, hyperparameter, and model tuning. Module 4 will be forecasting. So forecasting overview, processing time series data using Amazon Forecast. And when we get into computer vision, I'll talk about how to think about computer vision, how to analyze image and video, how to prepare custom data sets for computer vision. And then in module 6, it will be NLP. So overview of natural language processing, NLP, natural language processing managed services. And then in course summary, it'll be really tying everything together, talking about some of the Amazon documentation that will be helpful and the requirements of the certification. So that's really, it in a nutshell. But let's talk about some of the machine learning jobs that are available for Amazon machine learning. The data science role is one of the roles that is very commonly found in machine learning. And this is applying statistics and analytical skills to interpret data. Most of the time, a data scientist has, I would say, a graduate degree or above. And those degrees are typically in statistics, computer science, economics, or data science, which I teach in many data science programs, and some programming skills as well. So that's really the data scientist role. Now, the machine learning engineer role, which is something that I've been teaching for quite a while as well, is a little more programming and systems design centric. And so understanding really the solutions architect material would be important. Potentially even the AWS developer certification could be helpful. If you have a background as a developer or a software architect, that would be very helpful to get a machine learning engineer role, and also to have some understanding of statistics. I would say every human on earth should know statistics, but it's especially helpful in machine learning engineering. There's also a science researcher, applied science researcher, which would be applying machine learning technology to a specific domain. Let's say a data journalist would be a good example of this, or potentially a natural language processing a model creator. That could be a good example of applied science researcher. These require knowledge of both the domain and the machine learning. Also, you could see a biologist could be a good example of this. A nutritionist, nutrition and machine learning are becoming a big deal. And then there's also the machine learning developer role. This would be integrating machine learning with software applications. So this would be maybe using things like Hugging Face, for example, downloading a pre-trained model and putting it into production. This requires strong app development skills and machine learning knowledge. So let's also now talk about some of the resources that are available to study for the AWS Machine Learning Certification in terms of resources, documentation, and white papers. So to start with, we have machine learning on AWS. That would be one of the resources here to take a look at. There's also the AWS Machine Learning blog. There's machine learning solutions in the marketplace. There's also Amazon Machine Learning Service documentation. There is machine learning solutions in the AWS marketplace. There's also Amazon Machine Learning Service documentation and machine learning in the AWS Partner Network. These are all great places to take a look at additional information. And in fact, one of the things I'll bring up here, and I'll just talk about this a little bit. If I go over to the official website and I change gears here and go to that, one of the things that I believe would be a really good resource would be to go to the documentation for AWS. And if we go here, we can take a look at this documentation. And if you look at the documentation overview, they have a methodical view here of all the different services, and going down to the section on the AWS website where they cover machine learning, and making sure you understand at least a definition of every service that's available, like Amazon Augmented AI, Amazon Code Guru, Amazon Comprehend, Amazon DevOps Guru, Amazon Elastic Inference, Amazon Forecast, et cetera, would be very helpful. The center of the universe in terms of machine learning on AWS is Amazon SageMaker, and it would also be a very good idea to cover the Amazon SageMaker documentation in detail. And I'll just briefly talk about it, that Amazon SageMaker is a fully managed service with features that help developers and data scientists prepare, build, train, and deploy machine learning models quickly. SageMaker removes heavy lifting from the ML process to make it easier to develop high quality models. SageMaker provides the components used for machine learning. So this is really probably in itself one of the best possible pieces of documentation to read. You can assume that if you're going to pass the AWS Machine Learning Certification, that you have had experience with machine learning, doing with SageMaker, that you've played around with the different features including SageMaker Studio, SageMaker Autopilot, those kinds of things. You also understand which libraries can be used in a distributed fashion. So, for example, there are some libraries that allow you to split the training across multiple GPUs. Also about deploying and managing machine learning models. This would be really critical. So these are all things to pay attention to, potentially as you're studying for the certification exam. And maybe one final thing that I'll mention is that if you're a student, there is something called SageMaker Studio Lab that I also would recommend you take a look at. And Amazon SageMaker Studio Lab, the URL is Studio Lab, studiolab.sagemaker.aws, and you can actually get access to this um, if you're a student by requesting a free account. And I already have an account, so if I log in here, really the main takeaway is that you can actually get free access to GPUs, and you can start a runtime. You can either pick a CPU or a GPU runtime, and there's a whole series of sample notebooks, and including there's even a dive into deep learning interactive book that shows you 150 Jupyter notebooks and teaches the ideas and the math and the code. And this has been adopted at 300 universities, including Stanford, MIT, Harvard, and Cambridge. So there's a lot of really good stuff here. In addition, there's links to Hugging Face notebooks that you can play around with inside of Studio SageMaker.aws. So lots of really helpful resources that are free included on the AWS website. And maybe the last thing I'll say that would be very helpful for you would be to go to the AWS certification website. And if I pull this up, I go to the official website and I go over to the different certifications here, and I look at a particular certification, and I look at the different exams that are available, and I'm going to find the machine learning certification. When you click on the link, there's all this different information available, including the exam guide, the sample questions. But the other one that I would highly, highly recommend is that if you first of all, go through the exam review documentation that they give you, and also go to the white papers that they recommend. I would say potentially the white paper itself would be maybe the very first thing that I would recommend someone read, and maybe the last thing that I would have somebody read if they're studying for the certification exam, just because it sets the proper context. And if I go through here and pull this up, we can see that there's something called the machine learning lens. And the machine learning lens is basically a pattern that you can follow called the well-architected framework pattern. And it covers the things that we're already used to if you're familiar with solutions architect, like operational excellence, security, reliability, performance, efficiency, and cost optimization. But also it covers the well-architected machine learning lifecycle, which is the process of business goal identification, ML problem framing, data processing, which would include data collection, data preprocessing, feature engineering, model development, which is training, tuning, evaluation, model deployment, which is inference, prediction, and model monitoring. So these are the life cycles of the machine learning life cycle. And really understanding the way that AWS thinks about these things is going to be critical to your success on the exam. And if you look and then tie that again back to the original well-architected framework pillars, you can see that performance efficiency covers deployment and monitoring, reliability covers monitoring and business goal, operational excellence covers the business goal, security covers model framing, cost optimization covers ML model problem framing, and also data processing. So you can see that there's a link as well to the original well-architected framework. And so this is a great thing to be aware of. And it's something that we'll have some time to cover over the next several weeks as we're going through the AWS machine learning certification material. And what I will do then is just maybe briefly talk about that. So over the next several weeks, I'm going to go through some of the official training material for AWS Machine Learning Certification, walk you through how to study for it, prepare for it, get into some of the theory as well, potentially do some demos around any of the topics that seem interesting, and keep going down this road of mastering AWS. All right, well, see everybody next week.